never in my life met anybody like me that had been through, who had been a child conceived of artificial insemination. And we don't see, especially in black communities, black women actually paying to have kids. Cause y'all, black women be like, girl, please, miss me with that. We be trying to get rid of them. But you actually took a very alternative route at a very early on time and decided to go through that process.
That was no knight in shining armor. That was no male. That was nobody that I wanted to raise a child with. I was very specific about what I wanted. I wanted a child.
Specific.
I said Pacific. You know what the hell I mean. I knew exactly what I wanted. Okay?
You did.
I wanted a child. I wanted a...
No, what were these specifics?
The specifics I wanted was a tall, dark, handsome boy.
Got tall. 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
1 out of 3 ain't bad.
1 out of 3 ain't bad. I am tall. What's up, Truth Tellers? I'm Brii Renee, straight from the A, and that was me and my mom talking about my sperm donor dad. Yep, that's right. I grew up with 2 moms that were lesbians. And let me tell you, being raised in the 90s by 2 women was not easy and damn near unheard of. Back then, most people thought that if you had at least one LGBTQ parent, that you were destined to be gay. And I'm proof that it's not true. And today, we're gonna break it all the way down for y'all. Don't go nowhere. You don't want to miss it. It's going down on Truth Talks.
All right, Truth Tellers, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ryan Cameron, and as always, we got our other co-host, my brother from another mother. It's Willie Moore Jr.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Willie Moore Jr., the voice of faith, fun, and, of course, a little frustration. Today's going to be a huge day. I cannot wait to tell the truth. Flat out.
And, of course, you just saw in the opening, Brii Renee, represent the Brii Hive.
What's up, Brii Hive? It's Brii Renee, straight from the A. And speaking of the truth, I'm going to keep it real and give y'all all my truth today.
And Dr. Viral herself, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant.
Doctor.
Double up my doctor. I'm a double doctor now. What's up, Doc Spot? It's your favorite doc, Dr. Bryant. I'm going to figure out if I want to bring the smoke or if I want to make it cook tonight, which y'all will know. Hang tight. Brii, I can't wait to hear all the mess you had to go through growing up with 2 moms. When you first told me that, a while ago, I asked you. I said, so, are you a lesbian?
Yeah.
And you were like, girl, no.
Yeah, yeah. That's usually one of the first questions, and we're going to get into a lot of myths today, and I definitely want to educate the masses on a lot of ignorance that I had to encounter growing up, you know?
Yeah. We're going to get into a lot of this later on, but first, Willie, tell us what's going on with our trendy truths.
Indeed. Yet another major lawsuit, but this one is not about Diddy, right? It's Malcolm X's family. They filed a $100 million lawsuit over the murder of the civil rights leader's death back in 1965.
Yeah, the complaint accuses the NYPD, the FBI, and the CIA Department of Justice and the U.S. government of playing a role in his murder.
Now, the complaint reads in part, knowing the gravity of the threats, the FBI failed to protect Malcolm X. Instead, they actively compromised his safety by arresting his security team days before his assassination.
Why do you think it took so long for this suit to be filed, y'all? Do you think anyone or anything will come out of it?
I'm not sure. I think that they've done a really good job of painting so many different narratives, whether it was through his movies and documentaries. So some movies and the optics are given to show that the Nation of Islam was responsible for it. And then I've seen other documentaries that actually shared that the FBI and the CIA, matter of fact, the ALLUM, all of them were behind it, right? Like all of them was behind it. And so here's the thing. I know that sometimes they say you shouldn't dig up old stuff, but back in the day, my daddy would tell me, you can dig up some old stuff because sometimes it's treasure down there. So I'm really excited about the opportunity for the family because here's the thing. A lot of people don't know. Malcolm X's family, they didn't have a whole lot of money when he died. And so his legacy is built on his education and his knowledge versus the wealth that he wasn't able to amass because of the people who did certain things against him. And so if they can get $100 million, his family legacy and lineage gets an opportunity to share in the wealth that he should have had if he still be living.
Yeah, I think it is important that they do, to your point, dig up the old dirt. there was Bruce's Beach back in Los Angeles, right? Where they dug up some old dirt and some politicians came together and made those white people return that beach to the black people who owned it. And so that was treasure in the dirt that they dug up for those black people. That black family now has this property that's on a beach that's worth, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's it has created generational wealth for them.
Right.
Even though I do think they agree, they deserve that amount of money, and I think that they definitely should get it. I don't know if it's still gonna feel like justice. You know what I mean? Because those people, some of them that were in part of those organizations may be long and gone now.
I'm curious about how this is going to play out for Minister Louis Farrakhan. Because for so many years, there was all these people that were always saying that he had something to do with it. And if it comes out that the CIA and the FBI were really the culprits behind it, I saw something on X the other day. It was like, y'all owe Minister Farrakhan, an apology, because if he had nothing to do with it, there's always been like that hidden thing in the room. It's like, nah, Farrakhan had something to do with it. He didn't want to do all that, So it's really interesting to see how that's all going to play out, because I actually had a chance to sit down with the minister. They said, you want to meet Minister Farrakhan? And I said, sure, man. And I flew down to Fort Lauderdale, and a 30-minute conversation turned into 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And he told me a lot of things about the nation and some other things. And he's a very well-respected individual. But to always have that one thing in the back of people, always say, no, he had something to do with it. And if the government was really behind it, I wonder how that narrative is going to change.
And then speaking of that, what if it comes out that he did have something to do with it with the government? I think that's really going to flip the whole nation of Islam upside down, because it's like now you were working against your own people with the government, the same people that you said were supposedly our opposition. So I think it's going to be a lot of uncovered treasure and mess.
I can't take no more black men going under, so.
Come on.
I just pray it just go the right way.
Well, you don't want to hear this next story, because Flavor Flav
is big
mad about NBC kicking him out of the music group Backstreet's dressing room at the Rockefeller tree lighting. The rapper said that security quickly came along and told him to beat it. NBC allegedly didn't want him in the area he was in, and they asked him to leave.
Now, Flavor Flav tweeted this: I feel weird. I was invited to the Rockefeller tree lighting tonight, and I was escorted to see my boys, the Backstreet Boys. And when they were backstage in their dressing room, security came up to me and said, NBC does not want me in this area, and I needed to leave. At the same time, their social media woman came up and asked to capture social content. What did I ever do to NBC or anyone? All I ever do is try to spread love and joy, and I did that for NBC at the Olympics.
Yeah, the Today Show host said they had no clue that Flavor Flav was dealing with an issue backstage, and a network insider claims Flav showed up unexpectedly, and security was simply just doing their job. Do y'all feel like NBC did Flavor Flav wrong? And does Flavor Flav have the right to be upset about this?
The thing about this is, I grew up on Public Enemy. Chuck D is a really close friend of mine. When did Flavor Flav become Flavor Flav light? I mean, we would fight the power. We went, you can't trust it, and all these radicalized things. And now he's backstage with the Backstreet Boys. What's going on? What happened to you, Flav? Yeah, boy, what happened?
Yeah, that seemed off.
Here's the thing. Media will always do a little propaganda when it comes to a strong message. Flavor Flav was literally the mascot to bring us so we could get the message.
Exactly.
They took our mascot and decided that they would make him a pawns for everybody else. And he did never stop it. And I don't blame him, of course. He's doing what he has to do. He's taking care of his family. He's actually more known across the world internationally than any other people, in Public Enemy. But I think you got to have an invite. A lot of times when people want to come to my shows or Dr. B's shows or even some of the things that you have, man, without an invite, I think sometimes your face card just ain't always good. I believe, my favorite books say, to be invited to the party. Don't sit yourself in seats that are high strung. You are to be asked to come up there. I'd rather sit in the back and be asked than allow somebody to kick me out. That's just too embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, y'all know I stay on Ticketed Talk. Okay?
You do.
I'm always on TikTok late night scrolling, and there's a new trend that caught my attention that I wanted to put y'all up on. Let's take a look.
Let's do it.
Listen and we don't judge. When you used to invite me to your family holiday function, I used to show up late because I didn't like their food.
What?
We're not judging. Don't judge. No, stop. No. We listen and we don't judge.
Sometimes I use the credit card for a purchase, and then when you ask me where the charge came from, I say I don't know, but I really...
Why, though? We listen and we don't judge. Sometimes when you tell me to take the laundry out of the dryer and sit them on the couch so you can fall on. I have a habit of smelling your underwear because I like the way you
got a
smell.
panties fetish?
No, I don't have no fetish. I said sometimes. Sometimes. We listen and we don't judge.
Sometimes when you ask me have I ate, I lie and say no, but I really got something to eat while I was out.
So I just be hungry.
And I just didn't want to bring you nothing back.
Y'all get the point.
Yeah.
So I wanted us to try it. Let's try it. Ryan and Dr. B, y'all go first.
So we gotta
Okay,
say,
you ready?
we
Okay.
listen and we don't judge.
Okay, so sometimes, Ryan, when I'm on FaceTime with the guy that I'm seeing and I gotta go to the bathroom, I take him and the phone on FaceTime in there with me and I say, babe, look, I'm on the toilet.
We listen
And we don't judge.
I'm gon' judge.
gon' judge.
Okay, now we listen and we don't
Don't
judge.
judge.
Sometimes, man, when my wife wakes up and it's time for the dogs to go out, and I've already said that I was gonna take them out that day, I try to pretend that I'm asleep because I don't want to take them out.
Patty Cakes, I hope you watching. Judge his ass.
Hey,
I'm
we
judging.
listen
Oh,
and we don't judge.
Okay, hold on. Willie and Brii, y'all gotta go.
Okay.
We listen and we don't judge. Go.
Willie, sometimes I get a little jealous that you don't check on me as much as you check on Dr. B.
Oh.
I'm your little sister too.
We
And I like when you
listen.
pray for
We
me.
don't.
Got it. I'm
I like
sorry.
when you pray for me.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. We listen and
Then
we don't judge.
I selfishly sometimes wish you knew how great you really are and you would choose different opportunities. And I often pray that you will make your best friend because you are so much bigger than you can see.
Oh,
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I told my kids that.
And you take the tools.
We listen and we don't judge.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, you huge.
Oh my goodness.
All right, well, that's our trending truth for today. Later on in the show, we're going to get up into all of Brii's business. But up next, we're going to be politicking, so stay with us on Truth Talks. And welcome back to Truth Talks. It's time to bring the White House to the streets and talk politics. What's up, Willie?
Well, Ryan, Palm Springs has proved me wrong. They're set to approve a $27 million reparation agreement for Black and Latino families who were displaced from their homes 6 decades ago. The position the city as a trailblazer in addressing racial injustice. I said it would never happen, but it's happening.
Let me tell y'all though, look, in the 1960s, the city demolished the neighborhood for commercial development. Y'all know I be talking about the developers. Palm Springs issued an official apology in 2021, but survivors and their descendants have been pushing for reparations like I have too. I'm glad to see that it's coming through for them.
Yeah, Evanston, Illinois launched a similar program in 2021. It focuses on housing grants to help for African Americans with home ownership, repairs, and mortgage payments. But now a conservative group is challenging the program in court, saying it discriminates against non-Black residents.
And of course, President-elect Donald Trump has been vocal in opposing DEI initiatives. He seems to believe that such initiatives promote wokeness and division rather than unity. What y'all think?
I think he's onto something. I think that when you start to say you're gonna give reparations to a Black and brown community, and then go on to say, but only to some Black residents, but didn't say to some, brown or Latin residents, that is the division that continues to be implemented into the Black and brown community. So there's a lot of things, again, that Trump says that just make sense. Doesn't mean I'm a Trumper, so mind your business. But he says things that make sense as far as this. I think it's very divisive.
I think you're giving him too much credit there. I don't think that he's saying that it should be some Blacks or all Blacks and all Browns. I think he's saying no Blacks and Browns should get it, and it should just be only for, or nobody should get it at all. And I think that's the issue. Unfortunately, I would rather some of us get some justice than nobody get justice at all. And I think that we have to continue to say, Trump, what is the issue with being woke? Like, why are you want us to be sleep so bad? What you trying to pull over our eyes? You know what I mean? Because when you sleep, you can't see what's really going on, and that's what the issue is.
You know, when I look at everything that's going on and how the word reparation is now being noted and quoted to be something that Caucasian people may be getting.
Right.
And then taking the word woke and now making it almost a derogatory term to use it against people who we said woke, which means that we were coherent in understanding what was
Smart.
going on.
Paying
It made you
attention.
smart, like I'm paying attention. Like, it's really, really tough. But in this particular case, I am just going to say this, and I'm going to be really, really honest. I'm just glad that that's something that's going to be on the table. The United States is a monkey see, monkey do state. I mean, a country. So at the end of the day, if something can be passed in one of these cities, I think it could happen in other places, even if it gets a little crazy at the top. If one person gets it done, I think somebody else can.
First of all, reparations was never talked about this much until it became a white reparation conversation. When it was just for black people, it wasn't talked about. Even Kamala said, I would advise that Congress does more studying and gathers more information around it, and that was a black woman who was running for office. So reparations was something we talked about amongst us as black people, but it didn't go national-wise where other cultures and races were talking about it until Trump mentioned we're going to make reparations for white people. Anything that's set out for white people tends to magnify.
Reparations
They
is for a
don't. That's the
marginalized
problem.
community. They have not been marginalized. They
Right.
have never been dragged
Since
out of
day
their
one.
homes.
Yes,
they
but
have
the-
never been separated from their kids and their family.
But the problem, Brii, is we have not been talking about, not we, the world hasn't been talking
Right.
about, or the nation about reparations when it was a black thing. Now that Trump made it a white thing, everybody wants to throw it around like it's now the
It's a
slang
new
word to talk
catchphrase.
about.
Yeah,
Right,
I
it's the
think-
catchphrase. But when it was a black thing,
Yeah.
it was nothing to talk about.
I think-
Even our black politicians were not talking about it when it was a black thing. That's the problem with not running black.
Here's a problem with Palm Springs, and I think we need to talk about this for real. I think anytime that we talk about something this big and all this kind of money, everybody thinks it's going to be a whole groundswell of things. I think it's going to be a one and done. And I think cities and states around the nation are saying, hey, you know we got this little situation. How do we make sure that this don't happen to us?
There's countless Lake Lanier's. There's countless Rosewoods. There's so many communities across this nation, Gullah Island, that have been taken over and made into other communities. People have been driven out their homes.
Right.
Like I said,
That's called
killed-
gentrification.
Let me
That's what it's called,
just tell you,
gentrification.
like being able to go out to Palm Springs, that's where my agent lives, right? $27 million is kind of like the average price for the home. Like I know his
One
home
home in Palm
is $27 million. So when you look at it, the $27 million there is just really like $2 or $3 million in your, in your normal city. So
Right.
I think it's not a big. It's not. It sounds big, but it's not as big as it sounds in a
For
city
their
like, because it's only gonna give
socioeconomic
you a little
means.
help in the apartment. It's only gonna do a lot smaller than what it looks like. 27 million. Yeah.
And it's unfair, really, because other ethnicities in our country have got
Like
reparations,
Native
like the
Americans,
Native Americans.
They own every casino there is.
In Nevada, that's what I'm saying. And
But what do we
Japanese
wanna own?
Americans.
What do we want to own? What would reparations
We
look
need
like
the
for
whole
African-Americans?
South. We need Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi. Them are our states. And I feel like we should have not only black legislation, black communities, black schools. We need black.
Where do we
But I
get the
think,
money and where does it go?
because
What does
black, let
reparation
me
look
say
like?
this. I think because black folks have really taken nothing and did the damn thing with everything.
We do.
We've been a president of the United States of America. We are politicians. We are leaders. We are school teachers. We are doctors and lawyers. We're taking over athletics. We have done so well with nothing that I believe in their perspective, it's let's give to the ones in their perspective, not mine,
Right.
who appear to be less fortunate, because to our benefit, to be positive and to toot our own horn, we could take nothing and kill the game. Any boardroom we step in, we end up being the best. Any field, or basketball court, or sports arena we step in,
But what
we end
about
up being the best.
reparations?
That's why they don't
So
want to give. But to
that's
your
why.
point,
But
to
what-
your
I'm not
point,
saying
that's
it's
why
right,
they don't
but
want
that's
to.
why.
That's
Can you
why.
just
No, to
ask,
your
like,
point. That's
what
why
is
they don't want to give us
reparations
look like?
reparations.
That's
Not
why. I
because
mean, I
they want to look out for the
That's
less
why.
fortunate. Because they
That's
scared if
why.
they give us our equal opportunity,
We already
they gonna be
killing it.
scared of what
We
we do
already
with
killing it. We already killing it. Yeah.
What's the opportunity though?
We're already killing
Like,
it.
if the Native Americans came up and they like, okay, cool, we want our reservations, we want
Yeah.
our casinos,
Right.
this is how we're going to make money, this is
Yeah.
how we're going to do it. What's the bigger plan
I'm
for
saying
African
Well,
those
here-
states, because
That's
that's
so
where we
good,
were the
Willie.
So
most
we gonna take
slaves
the South
at. We
And
take
do
the
what-
whole
what
South,
you saying
we
you
make
do
our
with
own-
no
with it.
plan.
Okay.
I feel like we need our own police. We
Okay.
need our own legislation. We
Where
need
you
our
gonna get the
own
money from?
school. We need the government is supposed to give us this money.
Right.
This is a part of our legislation plan, our reparation
See, and
plan.
that's the problem.
But-
That's the problem. The government doesn't give money to a community to build their own network, their own
right.
circles, their own think tanks. That's where black people go wrong with that entitlement. Government doesn't do that.
Whenever we want to talk about something on my radio show, there's always somebody that calls in and says what we all need to do, what black people need to do. The one thing that is the newest catchphrase is black unity. Nobody is going to be unified to come up with any kind of plan because we are too busy trying to be separate. It's all great that people who are making hundreds of millions of dollars in the NILs, we were talking about Malcolm X earlier. How many people do you know that's got a Malcolm X poster or something? How much money did his family get off of any of those things. So I think the problem is, to your question, Willie, is like, until there's a way for us to come together and say, this is a plan, and like Nzinga Shaw said on earlier shows, to strategize and unify and then, execute without blabbing it to everybody else. Because like I said, they're all sitting around now talking about how to stop this. And if reparations is going to be active, then we need to be sitting down right now having a conversation about that behind closed doors.
And I think black people all want to shine individually. They don't want to shine collectively. That is a problem that creates division. Black men do not want to marry. It says 90%, and you could talk about facts, but I'm going to give you stats, Willie. 90% of black men would never marry. 30% of black women would never be married and have to marry outside their race if they want to get married in general. Family is what creates wealth, not individualistic. And so unless we start to marry together and have two-parent households who have two incomes with families who can commune together, we don't have a community. We can't do think tanks, and there is a division.
I have friends that are of the Indian culture, right? And they all get together. They say, hey, man, if they come to us and they say, we want to start a business, right? And they say, we got a pool of money to start this business. Absolutely. And they go out and they find a business and they all support it. But along with that, they say, this is who you're going to marry. You got to marry this person. And if you don't want to do that, then we're not supporting you. You can't tell that to us.
No.
And you know why? To your point, the Indian community is the wealthiest community. Second to that is the Asian community. Third to that is everything else. Guess where we at? At the bottom. The only reason why the Indian community is the wealthiest is because why? They have the highest matrimony, the highest marriage rate, and the lowest divorce rate. So they're keeping all their families, even kids, in one big home and having all the income coming to one home, then taking that income, investing and building generational wealth through businesses and investments, and it's trickling down. Jewish do the same thing. We are the only ones who sit up here, and I've said this over and over again, I'm going to say it again, who will be fruitful and multiply in several houses while all of those houses are homeless.
But don't you think that's by design? Like, we're the only community out of those that you named that have been subject to this scrutiny in our country. Like, we've been torn apart. Our families, as women, our ancestors watched the fathers of our families be ripped out of the homes, ripped apart by horses. It was taught to us, and even the crab in the barrel bucket mentality, like, only one of you guys can make it. Master only got one favorite. That's over everybody else.
Let's go even deeper. The master used to come in the house, take the black wife out of the house in front of the husband, have sex with her, bring her back in, and guess what that black woman would say? How could you let him take me? And you know what the black man have to say? Because if I did, I'd be dead. That's imprisonment fully within a man. So it's black
But
men.
that's kind of what Nikki Giovanni said. I played a clip on my show today. She was talking to James Baldwin, and she was saying, what about, you can smile in my face because you go to that white man's face and you smile in his face, and he don't know nothing's wrong with you because you're trying to do what you can to stay employed, but you come home and you bring all that trauma to me. Why don't you smile at me like you smiling at that white man at work?
That's what she said, a lot of me.
Now, that was back in the 60s.
And she said, if I love you, why do I get the worst of you?
That's deeper than daddy issues. It's deeper. It's to your point. It's something that has been created by design, but we have to redesign it. We have to reprogram it, and we have to reshape what that looks like. So we have to respect our black men, not just our husbands, our co-hosts, our colleagues.
So this is what I believe. I believe everybody on this particular panel here, this is what it looks like to create a plan for reparations.
Think tank.
We know black people, most of us, we first generation money. Our grandmama ain't had no money. We grew up in survival mode.
We're all first generation voters.
First generation, like nobody was thinking of unity. We were thinking about taking care of our family, if I can be very, very honest. And with that, now there are so many people who have financial education, political education. There's more African-American senators and governors. Now it's time for us to execute a plan, because just in this little moment, we gave you an opportunity to show you what it looks like when 4 people get on one panel and we decide to give our truth. So we want to challenge you, if you in Mississippi, if you in Louisiana, to say, what does it look like for us, not only for reparation, but for our communities to be repaired? We talked about family, we talked about finance, we talked about what it's going to look like for us to get out of our own mindset and get into a we mindset. This is what it looks like. This is where it starts.
Even if we don't agree.
Yeah, even if we don't agree.
Right.
You just need to
We agree to disagree sometimes. So up next, we got to get up close and personal with Brii's real life experience of growing up as the child of a sperm donor and 2 moms.
Ooh,
wow.
And welcome back to True Talks. Today we're uncovering the myths about children raised by same-sex parents. Now, these misconceptions include beliefs like the children will be gay, the children will be lacking proper gender role models, gay parenting is harmful to the family structure because their parents lack morals.
Wow.
Now, Brii, this is your truth, so break it down for us.
Man, I would have to say I have encountered all of those things. And what was most hurtful to me growing up is that it would be adults talking to me as a child saying these things. It wasn't, you know how people always say, well, kids are mean. It wasn't kids. And if the kids came to me, they would say, my mom said,
Wow.
I can't go to your house because I can't be exposed to your gay mom. They think that I might catch the gay.
Might catch the gay.
Yeah, like you, and back then we didn't have COVID, but I was like, it's not a cold. You ain't gonna catch it. It's not, and I think that a lot of people struggle with the idea of exposure to gay. They think exposure will ignite some type of influence in you or curiosity. And I am living proof, me and my older sister, both of us, my sister was married, she's recently divorced, but we've never, either of us have ever been with a woman at all and have no desire. And we've been exposed to gays our entire life. And even when I think about like my niece and my nephew, they're 10 and 6, and they know, okay, mama, that's what they call my mom, that's their grandma. Mama has a wife. And they just go on about their, it's not, I think that we as adults make it way more sexual or way more convoluted than kids do. Like kids are very honest. They're actually more understanding than adults are.
I love it. I want you to take us back and tell us about your moms. Like, what do you know about their relationship? Like, really just take us a little bit deeper, because a lot of us have just never heard the ins and outs of this type of family dynamic.
Both my moms were for the city of Atlanta. They were police officers at the time. Really young. They started dating when they were like, oh, that's my mom. That's me, y'all. And that's my other mom, my Nana. And that's my other mom, Jackie. So my mom actually was married to my Nana. Well, not married because it wasn't legal back then, but they dated for about 10 years. Then they decided, hey, let's have a child together. We've been together. We want to have a family. My mom was going to be the one to conceive. And she said, well, maybe I should sleep with my Nana's brother. So then it's part of both of us. And then they were like, nah, we don't want to do that. That's a little weird. Yeah, let's not go that route.
It's giving cringe.
And I'm grateful that they did, right? So they decided to, my mom said she was actually on duty as a police officer for, I think at the time there were like a bunch of bombings going on at abortion clinics at Planned Parenthood. This is back in the 80s, late 80s, right? And so she ended up being, because she was policing and patrolling that area, she ended up making friends with the lady who ran that clinic. And the lady was telling her, we do more than just abortions here. We also help women and married people who are trying to conceive. And she was like, oh, well, I've been thinking about having a child and looking for different routes. And she was like, why don't you try the artificial insemination route? And so my mom went through the process of picking out a sperm donor. She went through the catalog. She had, like you saw earlier, she had some specifics that she really, really wanted. She wanted a tall, smart, intelligent boy. And I do know from my father's profile that he was a grad student at Georgia Tech at the time, paying for school. He is Middle Eastern. I do have brothers and sisters by him. I have not met any of them. My mom did offer for me to meet them when I was like 15, 16, and I was like, nah, I'm straight.
Do you know his name?
I don't know his name, because when you sign that, he signed to be anonymous.
Like, do you want to just see, like, not even to have a relationship, but meet him like it's your dad?
I think I'm way more afraid to do that. A lot of people who hear my story, they're like, oh my God, we should track him down and meet him. And I'm like, unless he rich and gonna cut a check, I'm straight.
Explain to us, and to me, because we kind of had an offline conversation about with your moms growing up, how the stigma of society, how when y'all went out to places, how they had to introduce themselves as either relatives or like as sisters. Like they couldn't say that they were together because they're not going to be able to accept that.
I didn't realize that society was so not understanding at the time.
Judgmental.
They were so judgmental.
Right.
And my mom I noticed I picked up as a kid, like if we would go to school stuff and both parents would obviously be there. They were at everything. She would introduce us, this is my cousin. This is my sister.
Wait, but did that ever confuse you as a kid? Because you knew that was mom and mom.
I really didn't even get a conversation about this is mom and mom.
Wow.
Nobody sat me down.
So how did you know to call both of them like Nana
I
or
never
mom?
called them both moms. So I only ever called my mom, the one who conceived me.
Right.
And growing up, I just kind of thought it was normal that it was another parent in the house. I just didn't realize that
It was a woman.
Yeah, like that it was different. I remember being probably about 5, 6 years old, and my sister, who's 9 years older than me, she was in high school on the phone, caking with a little boy, and she was like, yeah, my mama gay, or whatever, on the phone with the boy. So when she got off the phone, I was like, what's gay? And she was like, she explained to me, you know how you got a mama and a nana? That's not normal. Everybody else got a daddy. And I was like, oh, okay. They just had it down pat. Like, it still was such a structured household, balance between love and coddling with also discipline. So I just never felt like it was weird. I kind of thought, I actually would go into other people's households with a mom and a dad and be like, oh, this shit here dysfunctional than a mother. I got to go home.
You know, being an adoptee and never meeting anybody in my biological family to 2020, like, and finding out when I was 7, I realized that I had a lot of false confidence. Like, with so many different things that I'm working on. How do you think the treatment from people from the outside, the way that you found out, well, that's just gay. And then this is like, well, you know how this, and this, and they just gave it to you. And even hearing mom say, I wanted a boy, right? Like, what do you think that did on the inside of you in terms of confidence and being who you are today?
Oh, I had to build up my own confidence. It definitely, I think that's why I'm kind of like an extroverted introvert now. I definitely,
ambivert.
yeah, I have to go inside to fill me up. Not only did I get a lot of scrutiny from everybody else, but I was really angry at my mom because we didn't have the conversation until I was like 15, after I had found the donor papers. I used to go through, I used to pretend to be an entrepreneur in my mom's office at home, and I used to file her papers and do little stuff like that. And I went through and I seen the papers, so I went to my mom like, what is this? And I'm like, and she told me, like, okay, that's your father's papers. And I was like, well, why didn't you have this conversation with me? And I was like, by the way, you do know I know you gay. And she just bust out laughing because she was so, like, taken aback by it. I'm 15 at this point.
Right.
She was like, I just didn't know how to have a conversation with you. And I was like, well, I genuinely am mad at you because I feel like you kind of were lying to me and lying to yourself.
So
Because
what
you
did
didn't
you-
walk around being this person out loud.
So how did you think you came?
Like
Where did you
before
think
the
you come from? You
papers,
thought you
yeah.
were adopted? Like,
No, I always looked just like my mom.
Yes.
So I always knew that that was my mom. That was my
But
mom's
where'd
child.
you think the other partner?
My dad, she used to tell me that, yes, your dad is Middle Eastern and your dad is over in Iran. That's where he's from. I remember saying young too, like, when can I go visit him? And she was like, you
Brii.
can't, because little girls like you with smart little mouths like that, they'll stone you over there.
Stone?
Like, yeah, because she was like, your mouth too smart, because women over there don't have as many
Yeah.
rights.
Right.
So
Any
she
rights.
didn't technically like tell me the whole truth, but I knew that I did have a father. I knew that my nana obviously wasn't it, but at the end of the day, I was still mad because she never sat me down and explained her love in their relationship.
Brii, I love this story.
I got all the
think
feels
it's
right
amazing.
now, and I'm supposed to be the gangster on the set. I'm like,
But according to the Williams Institute, a think tank at UCLA Law, there are nearly 3 million LGBTQ plus adults parenting children, y'all. Children with gay, lesbian, transgender, or other sexual minority parents fare as well, or better than children
Period.
with parents of the opposite sex. Brii, was it ever strange watching your mom navigate her relationship, being that it was another woman?
No, it was very healthy to the point that I think it made me have an unrealistic expectation of relationships when it comes to men. Because the way that they partnered and just did that thing, it was like whatever needed to be done, one had it, the other one pitched in, one would help me with school, the other one would drop me off, it was never
But what about when they
a
divorced and then
struggle.
another mama came in? Was that confusing for you?
And it was a little bit hard because, of course, I loved my nana. I got all their names tatted too.
Right.
Like I got my nana. I still have a relationship with my nana to this day. She
so
probably watching.
Iranian and Hood.
And Hood at the
She's like,
same
put
time.
everybody name,
Everybody
Keisha,
name on me.
Manana.
Because I really genuinely feel like that's why I'm such a well-rounded woman. I was raised by 3 black, well-rounded women that really have very different personalities and strengths that I got. My nana taught me how to balance a checkbook and write a check and open up my first savings account.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? My mom taught me how to be a boss and go get this money and not expect any handouts. And then Jackie taught me how to finesse a little bit, be fly, be a
Right.
little street, you know what I'm saying, how to hang with everybody. So I feel like they all help make me the woman that I am.
Yeah.
And to your point about navigating relationships, like I said, when I would go into my friends who all grew up with their mom and their dads, I would see the mom doing all all the work. And their dads sometimes would not be working or out of work, or some dads were alcoholics, or you know what I mean? And the mom was working, trying to keep a job, trying to take care of the kids.
To that point, what was it like when mom divorced her first woman? Was everybody co-parenting? Because obviously
Definitely
you're
co-parenting.
hers.
When they decided to divorce, my mom was still a G about it. She was like, listen, we're going to bust this house down 50-50. You take what you get. We split everything.
But
She
what
was
about
like,
with you?
With me, you going to spend, and she let me choose. She never, ever stood in the way of our relationship. And to this day, I still talk to all of them equally.
I got a question. Knowing you as long as I have, and we've all got to know each other over the time of being on this show, you were very guarded at first, right? Okay. And then as we went through time and the guard went down a little bit and went down a little bit further, do you feel like, because you damn near been fighting all your life?
All my life.
How has it been for you in your own personal relationships? Because you never know what somebody's real agenda is. Do you think that's affected your own personal relationships outside of your business ventures?
Absolutely. I think when it comes, especially with dating, it's really hard for me to decipher a man's true intentions. So I think people be like, do you feel like you are at a disadvantage?
Wait, is that because you didn't have a
without
father?
a father? I think that's the biggest
like
disadvantage to me of not having a father, is not having a good example.
Not having a rubric.
A rubric. But a lot of my friends say, well, at least you didn't have a bad one, because I got a bad one. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it really just depends. But for me, yeah, I definitely always have a guard up. I think people are so judgmental. They'll take everything they can to use and hurt you. I've had friends, like I said, as a child, become a really good friend, and then their parents rip them apart from me because they feel like by association that I was gonna make them gay, or you know what I mean? All type of things. So yeah.
So Brii, earlier we saw you talking to your mother about your father. Let's take a look.
The only reason why you ended up light-skinned was because
Light-skinned.
light-skinned,
Not did.
light-skinned is because of the selection or the donors that were available. You know?
So you didn't go out as a dark-skinned woman like, I'm gonna choose a biracial man or another race of man because I want my child to be mixed, or I don't like the color of my skin.
No.
Because I feel like a lot of people assume that as well, because I'm light skinned, like, oh, her mother must have hated herself, so she went in and
I love
chose
myself.
a sperm donor that was not black. But it's like, fact of the matter is, how many black people, men, you know, going to donate sperm?
There were none. There were none.
Yeah.
There were none to choose from in my selection. So with that being said, now there may have been some other places, but I didn't have any to choose from. So I picked the best pick of the litter from what I had to choose from. And as a result, you came out the way you came out.
Shout out to your mom, who don't play, and she is really Pacific.
Really?
Let's get that out the way.
She's not Atlantic,
Shout out to
she
mom.
Pacific.
I love her to
Right.
life. You know, I gotta ask you this, like throughout your life, you know, growing up, you said that you've seen a lot of terrible role models in terms of what certain men look like. Just throughout your life, whether growing up or just throughout your tenure, were you ever able to pinpoint a guy and say, well, maybe that's what a man is supposed to be like, and maybe learn some traits from that?
You know what's crazy? The only male role model I had consistently throughout my life has been my Uncle Vaughn, and RIP to him. He recently passed 2 years ago, and I didn't realize how much of a father he was always everybody's favorite uncle in the family. But when he died, I was like, damn, I lost my dad and didn't even know it. You know what I mean? He introduced me to music, and he bought me my first books, and he would tell me, no, you too pretty for that, or pull that skirt down. But the caveat to that was he was gay. So that was my mom's brother and best friend. My mom, who actually had me, that was her brother and best friend, and he was gay. So I didn't look at him as a rubric of how I should date men, but he was the first man that loved me unconditionally and taught me my worth as a woman.
Well, several black LGBTQ celebrities are raising children. Karamo Brown from Queer Eye discovered he was a dad when a friend from high school told him they had a son 10 years later after taking a paternity test. Brown is now raising his son Jason, as well as adopted his half-brother Chris. At the end of the day, it's all about love. We will dive into the black community's mostly negative response to LGBT community identity in this clip from the Holden Court podcast. Singer Tank discusses homosexual phobia as it relates to black men as the elephant in the room. So take a look.
It's something about black men and the homosexual conversation that is it is a mess. The phobia as it relates to black men is the elephant in the room. And no one will actually articulate their devastation, right? Because you have to think, like, for a black man, the worst thing to be called
is gay.
is gay.
We'll have more Truth Talks after the break. And welcome back to Truth Talks. Before the break, we touched on a recent comment by singer Tank. Here's what else he had to say.
Something within our culture that has created this stigma. That is the somehow there's a program to make black men gay. Like you see it everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
There's an attack on
there's an agenda.
Strong black men. But who's the attack coming from?
Do you believe there's an attack?
How?
No, I'm asking. Do you believe
Again, that's my answer.
Oh, how?
How?
Wow. Great dialogue. Shout out to Tank. Ladies, I gotta ask you two, because you are two strong, amazing women. Would you ever date a man who experimented with other men but claims he's no longer bisexual or gay?
So I had a hairstylist. He was fine and very manly, but gay. And he had been engaged to a woman before becoming gay. And one time doing my hair, after doing my hair for like years, he was just like, Shy, curious, just want to ask you something. Like, if I wanted to date you, would you? I thought he was joking, but he was serious. And he said, no, I'm serious. Would you date me? And I said, but you're gay. And he's like, right, but I've been with a woman. Would you date me? And to answer that question and his question, I was like, absolutely not. And he was like, why? I said, because I can't compete with a man. I'm not gonna compete with a man. I won't even compete with a woman, let alone a man. And if we out somewhere and you're on a boys trip, this is just real, are you with your boys, I am still gonna feel some type of way. I won't feel no different than you being on a trip or a vacation with a woman than if you're with a man. And so it would be hard for me to process, and we would have a very unhealthy relationship because I would be inflamed.
I have to agree with her. I'm not doing it because, again, my gay uncle said, if you think he's gay, he's gay. And first of all, I would say, have you had dick? It's hard to give up, okay? You gonna want some more, okay?
Over and over again.
I'm not in a relationship. I can't compete with that feeling, okay? It is amazing. And you're gonna want
Ladies,
more.
I gotta tell you, and I can actually say his name because this is a part of his testimony. It's a young man named Kenny in St. Louis, Missouri, and he's a prominent musician. And it took him, he was saved for about 10 years, and then of course he got married to a beautiful wife, and he was like, yo, like, God delivered me from that. And now I'm able to speak out to other people who do it. I had never seen anything like that for me and my friends. If God made anything better than a woman, he kept it for himself. I mean, our problem was the other end, trying to just do too much with, you know what I mean? But when I heard his testimony and now seeing him married now for almost 7 years, they're healthy and striving, he continues to minister, and he says, listen, there will always be an ideation and a struggle for me. But the Bible says I'm gonna fight the good fight of faith, and that's my fight. Just like your fight might be alcohol, your fight might be womanizing, my fight may be selfishness, right? He said that's just his fight, and he found a woman who did it, and you know, now they got a beautiful relationship.
So what happens with, I mean, if he's going through all these things and he's still talking about it's always a constant struggle, what about for his life partner? To what Dr. Brian said, you know, he knows that he has these urges and there's things that are calling him. How secure is his wife with this relationship?
She seems to be really, really secure with his honesty.
Okay.
Like the one thing that you can't do with that, as she said when they were giving their testimony, she was just like, I can always appreciate his honesty because at least I know what to pray for. I know how to support him correctly, just like you would do an alcoholic.
And it sounds like she's using that, if you deal with me in my present and not my past, you'll never have a problem with me. Some people look at it like that.
Y'all know I'm Christian, and this is something I struggled with growing up. I honestly don't feel like God can deliver sever you from your natural urges. I feel like that is who you are. That is what you were born to be, unless you were molested and then you toy with it that way. Because some people have been sexually abused and then struggle with it. But a lot of people will tell you, I knew I was gay since the first time I had my first kiss, or I liked my first such and such.
Right.
Nobody had to tell me to like Lil Bow Wow. I just always liked him. You get what I'm saying? When I was not now. When I was little. Now I'm bigger than him. But anyway, with so many prominent people admitting that they're LGBTQ, I'm hopeful and I'm praying that the hearts and minds of many are going to change. That you guys will be more understanding and less judgmental when it comes to not only the people that are in the LGBTQ plus community, but also the children that are raised around that. Just have a little empathy. And I think that the earlier that we teach children that other people like this or outside of what they like exist, the more understanding and empathy that I think can be spread.
And thanks for sharing your story, Brii.
True telling it today, man. Hey, when we return, we're going to get into unpopular opinions. So stay with us on True Talks. And welcome back to True Talks. Now let's get into an unpopular opinion. Dr. B, what you got?
Listen, y'all, studies show that 14% of men they wear colored nail polish. Y'all, is that normal?
Hell no.
Is that normal?
No. Let me tell you something. Go ahead. Y'all get it, because I done went back. I done went back 35 years. Let me get my save back checked in.
Let me tell you something.
Let me get my check on. Go ahead.
It's the men. Is it normal?
Well, I think, what we see a lot of people now with Dwayne Wade, he's going to have his own line.
Would you wear it?
And no. I barely, even when I remember when Dion first started having Dion's hair designs, he would always go in and do the manicure with the clear polish. I'm not even able to do that. I will ask for like a shiny buff, because a lot of men, they don't want to do any of that grooming because of the whole, metrosexual and to the whole subject matter of the whole entire show tonight. Yeah. If you do too much, then obviously, you getting a manicure, you getting a pedicure, I'm just saying, as a man, that was a big deal, because the whole trend of being metrosexual and the type of clothing that people were wearing, that it was always a judgmental thing. So anything that you was doing for personal hygiene or personal grooming, somebody had something to say about it. So to answer the question, no, I don't think I would ever do that.
I'm okay with a man getting manicures and pedicures with clear or buffing, like you said. But when you start asking for designs, that's when we got a problem. And you want colors, I think you're doing too much. And I think that some stuff should be for us as women. Like, let us have some stuff. Y'all got purses bigger than us now. You know what I'm saying? Y'all carrying the Birkins, and I ain't even got one.
Purse?
They got a lot of them.
You don't see them NBA and NFL players
Oh,
coming
yeah.
through the tunnel with bags that look like ours?
Blame Pharrell.
And hold on, and then they bag and they walk are matching? That's the problem,
Yes,
y'all.
I'm in sex fighting with you over the last size 11. Give me my shoes back.
You just said you want people to respect
Right, you
people's
just said don't do that.
I do.
Hell, them men might like what they like.
If that's your sexuality, do it. But I'm saying you can't be my man.
But I'm saying we can't be champions for people to understand a culture that they don't want to be a part of. Here's the thing: to each to its own. Like, it's 2025 almost, right? It's 2025. So what I'm saying, for me and my house, like, we just serving the Lord. So for me, I'll do a manicure, and the younger generation, they doing the colors. I know some football guys. Excuse me, just real quick. I know some football guys who go to Ole Miss. I know that they don't even like toy around with nothing else, but they'll wear like the black. I think the one of the best high school players to ever come out, he was like, I do this color because my mama had cancer, just to represent her.
Right.
So I think it's the same way in their minds, especially to the younger generation. I think in their minds, it doesn't have anything to do ultimately with sexuality. Because when I seen this young high school kid, he was like, that's for my mama. And I'm like, that's what he's on.
And he could have wore black socks, black tie,
And
black
he could've
anything, black shoestrings. He could have done any of that.
I'm
asking you if your boys came in and they said, Dad, let's go get pedicure, manicures. Of course, you're gonna say cool. But then, they said, let me get. If they want color, black, it don't matter. If they want a color, if they want a boy color, are you condoning your sons getting a boy color, not a feminine, just a boy color on their nails, like a blue? A blue, a black, a brown.
It's not even a boy color no more. I was on a set with someone, and
but would you allow your boys?
No, not at all. And she asked about. I said, what kind? She just had a baby. I said, is it a boy or a girl? She said, we don't do gender.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, cool. This is the first time that I have ever dealt with it. I had to take a breath, and I had to say, okay, well, I was gonna buy some clothes or try to support, but I didn't really know how to support.
So she having a gender.
The fact is, we're living in a different
time.
living in a different time.
Right.
And so although I don't agree with everything, like the Bible's gonna always be my standard. Like I might not always get the standard, but that's gonna always be my standard. But at the end of the day, I understand the world that we're living in, and I do my best to be as gracious and loving as possible because I believe the Lord can change anything.
And I'll say, just like you don't always agree with everything, I can say from having conversations with all three of my moms, every LGBTQ plus person does not always agree with the genderless.
Come on now.
Yes.
Either.
Come on
They
now.
don't.
That's
They don't.
real.
Everybody does not have the same viewpoint. So I want
100%
everybody
real.
to stop lumping them all together and that way blanketing your hate.
Amen.
But Dwayne Wade talked about launching a nail polish collection like you were talking about earlier, Ryan, because he loves having a pop of color on his nails. And earlier this year, basketball player from the 76ers, the guard Jared McCain, got a deal with the popular nail brand Sally Hansen. Willie and Ryan, do you think male nail polish is becoming more acceptable?
Yep, and that's sad.
I think that with the 76ers player, the check became acceptable.
That's part.
That,
That's
I
what
mean,
it is.
they
That
said,
part.
you know what,
That
hey
part.
man, we'll give you, $500,000 a la Al Sharpton to start this voter registration drive.
And he said, paint every nail I got,
and paint,
hands
he's like,
and
yo,
toes. Paint me up,
sign me up and paint me up.
Paint me up.
Right to your point, I remember second year of radio, there was a company that wanted me to sign with them, big burger company, and it was like, yo, we're gonna give you $100X, be a part of the commercial with the rest of the talent. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And it was like, why you can't do that? And everybody thought I was the craziest person in the world. I was like, nah, because my mama and them from Mississippi, they live in a food desert, and if they eat that stuff, most of the people in the neighborhood that I service in the southeastern region, like they gonna die. So the question becomes, like, when things come on your plate, like everything can't get ate. You know what I mean? And so to my men, you gotta understand that we need men to show up as men now more than ever. There's no disrespect to men who may feel a certain way on how they feel about their sexual preferences or whatever, but as we move into this next presidency, men are gonna have to step up. Men of God are gonna have to step up. Men with integrity are gonna have to step up. And even if your integrity has been in question, it's time for you to make the proper adjustments so you can be the man that we call to be. Like, we have so many young boys who don't have anybody in their lives. And at some point we gotta say, okay, this is the standard for a man. This is the standard for a man. And when you put that standard out there, you got to live up to it, man. So I just need men to step up to the plate. I love you to life.
Shout
And
out
I
to you
just
for
want to
having
say really
integrity.
quick,
Yeah.
gay or straight, a good parent's a good parent, and a bad parent's a bad parent.
Amen.
now.
And
There you
so
go.
I
that's
agree
it.
with you 100% on that.
Because my mama taught me how to get to the bag, and I ain't laying on my back for nothing.
All right, well, that's it for this episode of True Talk. Remember to hit us up on our socials and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Till next time.
We love
Good night.
y'all.
Love you.
Good night.
I thought we would get one show without talking horizontal.
And you know what's funny?